Hello, everyone, and welcome to RBCM at Home, which is our online program that we started actually um, when the pandemic first hit, way back in March of 2020. And we started a program called RBCM at Home and RBCM at Home Kids and RBCM Outside. We used to do all of these once a week. And now we are actually just doing it every once in a while, especially when we have something that we want to celebrate. And today's RBCM at Home session is about a new platform that we just launched today. It's newly born platform called the Community Gallery. And the word community is a word that we're using a lot here at the museum, especially this month, because in addition to launching the Community Gallery, we also have a whole series of community engagement sessions, both in Victoria and around the province. I do see someone on Zoom who said that you're visiting from, or you're joining us from Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, I love Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, we're not going down to Portland, Oregon for a community engagement session, but we will have a couple virtual sessions at the end of the month as well. So the community engagement sessions are about where we all collectively see the museum going forward in the coming years and beyond. So we're really excited about that, those conversations that we're starting to have with users both locally and across the province and even in the US and beyond. So in addition to those community engagement sessions, we also have the Community Gallery, which is a site that's specifically designed to center the voices and the perspectives of the community, of all different kinds of community. And when we use the word community here at the museum, it could mean lots of different things, but we like to celebrate the fact that there are many different communities all around the province. And then even within those communities, it's not a monolith. There's so many different sort of communities within communities. There's so many different perspectives within community. And we wanted to have a platform that really celebrated that. We really wanted to celebrate the multiplicity of perspectives across the province for all ages and all lived experiences. So I wanted to just say, as a little bit of context on this platform before I start to show you what it looks like, and then also introduce a couple of our special guests today, is that this platform actually started back, speaking of the pandemic and the beginning days of the pandemic. In addition to doing the RBCM at Home, starting the RBCM at Home programs, we also put a call out to visitors throughout the province to share some experiences that they were having with the pandemic, early days of the pandemic. And we were really grateful, honored actually, to have so many different people submitting photographs, videos, stories, reflections, artwork that they created, digital artwork that they created, and even some people that submitted actual collection items, which India can speak to as well. But we got so many different perspectives, and we were really grateful of that, but we didn't have a platform, or we didn't have any way to really share that in a public-facing way, to be able to celebrate all the different lived experiences that were shared with us to the larger public. And that was the sort of beginning point of this Community Gallery. So it's been a couple years in the works to have some kind of gallery space that would be that could share out multiple perspectives across the museum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share what it looks like, and Jenny will actually, if she hasn't already, put in the chat and comment section a link to the site as well, so you could follow along at home as well. So the Community Gallery, the tagline is a public perspectives platform. So looking at the many different ways of perspective is provided, and also when you have multiple perspectives, then it can get really exciting in terms of how how those different perspectives maybe speak to each other, or like speak to a different aspect of a big idea. So we see these galleries, and you'll see at the top here, there are these tabs. I'm gonna just quickly go to the Explore Exhibitions tab. So when I click on that, you'll see some of the exhibitions that we have up right now. We have 5 exhibitions, and I'm actually gonna go to this one, which is where this community gallery actually was born, and it's the COVID-19 exhibition. So with any of the exhibitions that we have, there will be an intro panel that sort of speaks to the reasoning behind the exhibition. Often, we're starting to work with the Nanaimo Museum, and they'll co-create this with us as well. But so each of these exhibitions will have an organization or a person that will co-create the exhibitions with us. But within the exhibition, there are all the different submissions that that people put forward. Like, for example, here is making forts. My kid was more of a teenager during the, but I would imagine if my kid was younger, I would imagine we would have made lots of forts and isolation forts. So this is Nova Fernandez. She was 5 at the time. So Nova's mother submitted this as just to share that particular moment in time. And then also, for example, here's another one where it's there are lots of weddings that happen, or maybe not as many as were planned, but there were weddings that happened during COVID as well. So this was a couple that wanted to share that. What their COVID wedding was like. And you'll see in the back, there's Corona beer as the beer for the wedding. So there's, so the idea with this is that each exhibition, it would be launched, and then people can submit into that as well. So, so if within this, if you have a photograph from early days of COVID or now even too, you could submit a story to this collection. So that hopefully we see people get inspired by the different topics and want to submit their own ideas and images and perspectives into an exhibition. So I'm going to we'll come back to the gallery in a second, but I wanted to bring in my colleague from the museum here. So India Young, Dr. India Young is a curator of art and images here at the museum. And India has been part of the organizing team here for this exhibition, this project, the community gallery, in addition to staff from across different departments here at the museum. But India, I wanted to invite you into this conversation in particular because as a curator, well, first, can you, what does that mean that you're the curator of art and images? How would you define that role within the museum?
Great question. So I'm the curator of art and images. Images, for all intents and purposes at the museum, refers to photographs. And that means at the museum, I work with the collections of artworks and collections of photographs that are part of our permanent collections, which are mostly housed in the BC archives. And in working with those collections, I research the materials that we have. I curate the collection by sort of determining what comes into the collection and very occasionally what might leave the collection. And I facilitate with other organizations to loan artworks out to make sure they get out into the world. And then I work with my community partners to create exhibitions that you can see here at the Royal BC Museum.
Yeah, so often when we think about exhibitions, we think of tangible exhibitions. You come into the building of the Royal BC Museum, there are walls and panels and maybe objects in display cases. How do you see so this is not that. This is a digital platform for exhibition space, so people can share, with the advantage is that you don't necessarily need to come to Victoria to see a and that it's accessible across the province and across the world. How do you see the difference between that sort of tangible exhibition space and virtual exhibition spaces?
Great question. I think that this virtual exhibition space kind of leverages what we see a lot on the internet these days. And the more colloquial way we think of the word curate. We use it when we use our Pinterest or our Instagram, or even our, just our social media in general. We're making selections about what we want people to know about us or see about us in relation to the community that that is able to access that on the internet. So, that's your followers, that's the algorithms that are sharing what you have with the world. And this website is really an extension of people joining in a community to share their voices.
Mm-hmm. And that's a shift in general with museums around the world, right? That there's for quite a long time, museums that centered the museum voices, whether it was curators or other staff within the museum, that the authority sort of laid at the feet of the curatorial voice within the museum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually think that that's a misconception.
Yeah, counter that.
It is. It is interesting and specific that museums have sort of fashioned themselves as the caretakers of history. And so in that way, they've also fashioned themselves as very specifically authoritative. And there is something that is quite finite about when something comes into a museum, because that's a choice. But curators have really always worked with various communities. At the Royal BC Museum, the most obvious example is the scientific communities, who are continuously sharing knowledge between the collections of the museum and scientific researchers worldwide who are studying things like climate change, who are tracking patterns through history and time, through the resources in the collection. And it's those researchers in universities, in governments, who are making use of the information that is housed within museums. And in that way, those museums and collections become part of other communities in that way. So I think that there is a slight misinterpretation about the history of authority.
And that's fair. And I think that maybe that sort of centering, and understandably, like the centering of discussion is around collections, because the collections are the heart of a museum, one of the hearts of it. I think there are multiple hearts within a museum, but it's one of the hearts of the museum. So often when working with community, it's in relation to either directly what's within the museum already, or what is within community that can relate to what's within the museum already. And I think partly the community gallery, and this is a good segue to bring Alden in to the conversation, because one of the community one of the community partners that we worked with on this, the community gallery, one of the first community partners is the Climate Disaster Project. And Alden, do you want to speak a little bit about the Climate Disaster Project?
Yeah.
And while you're talking, I might just pull up the gallery so people can see.
That's great. Yeah. So I'm Alden. I'm the Senior Research Associate on the Climate Disaster Project. And the project is a network of journalism students and faculty across the country. And we also have partners in the Philippines, Scotland, and Australia. And the project arrived because, climate change is actively, destroying livelihoods and taking lives and seriously impacting all of us. And we are all climate disaster survivors, but we don't see ourselves this way. And the news media often presents climate change as sort of an incoming vague threat. And so our goal was to really sort of focus on the human impacts of climate disasters through firsthand accounts And we do it through a trauma-informed process where we actually work with storytellers to help them share their stories. And we tell it completely using their own words from an interview that we do with the storytellers. And so they have full control over the process, over what gets shared. And so this Climate Hope gallery ends up being a collection of stories that were produced by students and survivors in the fall 2022 term, covering a whole pile of firsthand accounts from the wildfires to the floods to, I think there might be hurricane stories. Yeah.
And then so when you click onto each of these stories, it lets you know whose story it is, and then as told to, so you get a sense of who was receiving that story as well. Yeah, so this is, and they're really fascinating, and it's also one of those things that will build over time as well. So and we hope that people will go to the community gallery and take time to really listen and read and take in some of these stories. And then Alden, it's also like, as people are reading it and taking it in, it's provide some space to reflect on their own experience, right? It's that's part of the sort of connective thread of an exhibition like this.
Definitely. It's also why we're so excited to be part of the Royal BC Museum's Community Gallery, because a large part of what drives our work is that we believe that stories, the sharing of stories can create communities. And it's through these communities that we're going to find the hope and the solutions and the networks to be able to move through this our future of climate change. And I think that the idea too of this community creation of stories, not sort of creation by, say, journalists on their own. And so it really aligned totally with the community gallery. And so we're really open to other folks that want to share their stories. It's a constantly evolving project and a constantly growing library of climate disaster accounts.
Indeed. Do you want to jump back in with just with what Alden was saying in terms of stories? Because we often at the museum, we talk of like the museum is about telling the story of British Columbia, and there's lots of different ways to think about that. But the role of, I'm just wondering the role of story from a curatorial perspective, and how, like what Alden was saying, does that resonate with elements of your practice? And how, or are there ways in which it sort of, there's some creative tension to?
I think stories are another heart of museums. One of the reasons that I fell in love with museums when I was a child was because of the stories that they brought to life, that they bring to life. I love the immersive storytelling that happens in the space of a museum. And so it's exciting to try and figure out how to make that same palpable emotion happen in the digital sphere. And certainly pairing really powerful stories with really striking images is a recipe for success. And it is when you tell great stories that you create lasting memories. And that to me sort of is what's impactful about the work that I get to do.
Does that resonate with you, Alden, in terms of like?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like especially the lasting memories, and I think it's what I think for us, a lot of it too is really driving home that this is something that's happening to all of us. And so I think the stories are like that. And the idea that we all have a story to share here too. Part of the work of the Climate Disaster Project is, and I think it feels very similar to the work done by the COVID-19 Community Gallery, is to really show the gradient and diversity of experiences within that reality. So it's these climate disaster stories that are about heat waves and floods. They're not solely, like some of them have lost houses and jobs, and others it's maybe not quite the same experience. It's an experience of sort of the anxiety of going to a grocery store at this time and like have food security and just like surviving your work shift in the heat. And there's a whole gradient of experiences. And I think like that idea that you're saying of finding connections amongst those, and then also like the memories, yeah, totally aligned with that.
It's a great segue. So I'm gonna bring back the bring back the site, because we're talking about stories, and one of the tabs up here as well is Explore Stories, which it's very interesting in that all of the exhibitions are kind of brought together. It's like as if you were, if in a museum, all the exhibition spaces kind of collapse in on themselves, and that like text panels from one exhibition are side by side with another text panel from another exhibition, and there's ways in which unintended but like in a surprising, insightful ways, these stories would like be next to each other, and we could start to sort of tell stories in relation to other stories, which I think each time you go on to Explore Stories, it would be a different configuration of the stories next to each other from different exhibition spaces. I also wanted to just give show the community agreement. So part of what we felt like was really important within a site like this is to have an agreement of how we all show up in this kind of space. So the site is a space for respectful exchange. With that in mind, these community agreements guide us as we create a safe space for sharing. So personal responsibility, do no harm, keep to the exhibit topics, and authentic response. We want to make sure that when people are putting their thoughts forward, they're speaking for themselves and no one else, and they show up in an authentic way, and they do that in a way that's not causing harm for anyone else. So this is sort of an agreement document that sort of speaks to the kind of space that we're wanting to create here. And then also in terms of stories, so we talked about Climate Hope. I Am Here is an exhibition by Indigenous youth. We worked with Indigenous youth and Indigenous educators a few years back. And it was spending time in the museum with the cameras, taking their own photos and telling their own stories through poems. Danica Paul is now coming on to this and is the community curator for this particular exhibition space. So she's shaping what this will be and what this will evolve into. And so you'll see that there are like Chandri here. She came in and was looking at belongings that connected to her family, including this Tahltan dagger sheath. So her poem, I am Tahltan Niska, I am looking for my traditions, I'm learning to speak my language, I'm listening to my ancestors, I'm remembering my family, I used to be a child, but now I'm a wolf, I'm waiting for my call, I'm running with the sun, I'm chasing my freedom, I'm hoping to never get lost, I'm living with my tribe, I am me. And one of the things that is that it's time stamped with 2017, but Chandri can come back and do another one if she'd like it 2020, 2023 or 2024 as this evolves. Cynthia, who was part of that initial project, just submitted this, so Cynthia 2023, with her poem from now, and then Cynthia from 2017 was this one. So it's sort of speaks to a moment in time as well, especially within Indigenous youth or youth of any, like youth in general. The like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years is a big change. So sort of speaks to and honoring that change. And then I just wanted to also, so Climate Hope, I am here. Finding Nature in the City is another one where we worked with the grade 3-4 class at South Park Family School. And thinking about how how kids see nature in the city. So especially within Victoria, that rather than thinking like we're in city and then we're out in nature, if we go to a park somewhere, that the interplay between nature and city is always happening. So kids from that class submitted both their artwork, which is so cute, and then also their haikus. So light breeze blowing here, cute little peacocks walking, big long wooden fences, a big long wooden fence. So they're reflecting on their experience of finding nature in the city. And what we envision with this is that also then classes from around the province can do this as well. And we'll build up an exhibition that shows perspective of kid voices and kid perspective from around the province. And then within the exhibition intro, it speaks to the co-creation with Catherine Cook and her grade 3-4 class. And then the last exhibition that we have up right now that we're in the process of creating more, and we hope that we hear from you and with ideas for exhibition spaces as well, is RBCM Through the Ages. So how can we create space for people to share in their ideas and their own maybe images from when they were a kid, or when they brought their kids through, or when they were like on their first date at the museum, or any kind of personal experience they have from, or a father-daughter day at the museum. And we also put in some images from the archives looking at the museum in different ways. So, so yeah, so there's, so we hope that if out there, if you have any images you'd like to share, what you would do with that, you can go right to submit a story to this collection directly. But you also would need to create an account, just in terms of submitting. The account doesn't take long to do, but you would create an account. I'm in my account already, so it doesn't say what you would see, which is sign in or log in at the top there. And then if you'll do that, then you'll get an account, and then you can submit right into any of the exhibitions that you would like to. So yeah, so that's Indiana, Alden. I'll bring you just in the last 5 minutes. I'll bring you both back in to the discussion.
Can I just make a comment on
Yeah,
submission
please.
to the Climate Hope?
Please.
Yeah, so we would love for, if anyone wanted to share their story through the Climate Disaster Project. I would say one note on our submissions is ideally we'd love to walk you through the process that we've developed, because it's been very specific and trauma informed, and you would get to work with us to develop what questions we asked, and you would get to help write your whole story and edit it. But it might be a little different than just submitting. But I think if you go through the submission process, Chris can connect you with us.
Yeah, we'll make those connections for sure. And thank you, Alden, for that, because that's really important. That trauma-informed practice is a really important piece of this. Shannon wrote that she has a series of portrait paintings with stories of healthcare workers throughout British Columbia during the first phase of COVID. So Shannon, that would be amazing to submit some of those if you feel comfortable submitting that. We'd love to see that. And that's really what this is about, is hopefully it sparks some connections where people want to share out their experience as well. Oh, thanks. So as we end the session, India and Alden, if you want to just say what just in terms of like the future of community engaged work, where you see that going, how this gallery can be a support for that, and then what you want to see going forward.
Big one. India,
Yeah,
do
it's a
you
big one.
wanna
Sorry.
go?
India,
Go.
India, you can go first.
Yeah, it's a big one. I'm excited to see how this can possibly connect with the community engagement sessions that the museum is doing around the province. It would be very exciting if when we're traveling through the province, people then want to connect with Alden and tell some of their climate change stories. I'm thinking specifically of the wildfires in Tahltan Nation a few years ago, but I mean, there are so many climate stories that specifically impact BC communities. And so sort of bridging those relationships to bridge communities might be very exciting. And then hopefully we also sort of touch base with new communities who would like to share what they're doing out there in the world through this portal.
Yeah, it's a huge question, Chris, and it's something we wrestle a lot with at the project, since one of our goals is in the next few years to develop our own sort of interactive archive of these stories. So we're really excited to get to play with this a bit with the RBCM community gallery. And I think there's a lot of different hopes and possibilities for sort of community engaged storytelling and galleries. I know like one thing where we sort of hope to see happen with some of this work is like we talked about, sort of that developing of communities around similar experiences and across communities. But we also like our sort of the additional part of the climate disaster project is we take all of the information. So when we ask storytellers about their experiences, we also ask them what helped and didn't help, what they would have liked to see in the future, what their ideas for solutions are to these problems. And by that, I think these stories, they're important, like firsthand accounts, but they're also these rich with information for ideas of how we can all sort of mobilize around these problems and how we can sort of shape solutions for the future. And so part of our project will actually launch investigative and solutions-based journalism based on the ideas of these stories. And so I think there are also these important sites of sort of community-driven research and change and ideas. So there's just so much possibility, I think, in all of these kinds of galleries and collections.
Hear, hear. I think especially within the museum for us, like to be witness to that, like having an opportunity, like both India and I work with lots of different communities in lots of different ways, but to be able to be witness to such good work happening, and especially over time to see that unfold is a real gift. So hopefully the community gallery sort of provides a sort of larger net for that, for other people to connect in on all that good work as well. We just put up in the chat and the comment section our page around community engagement sessions. Please feel free to connect with us on that level, but definitely go explore the community gallery and let us know what you think. And thank you so much, Alden and India, for joining. Thanks, Jenny, for helping out on the back end. And thanks everyone for joining in today. So
Thanks so much for having me.